Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us for today's session introducing to you Yellowfin for AWS. So my name is John Ryan, I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Yellowfin, and I'm joined today on today's call by Amazon Web Services Partner Development Manager Nigel Watson. So today's session is all about giving you a good understanding of what Yellowfin for AWS is, what it can do, what it can't do, and when and where it can be of best benefit for you. Now, we did say that this will be a half-an-hour webinar. There's a chance that might go slightly over, so just wanted to set a few clear expectations there. So really, we wanted to start by just explaining to you, what really drove us to make Yellowfin more easily available on AWS. And the answer is pretty simple, and that is that it's good for Yellowfin and that it is good for our partners as well. And ultimately, it's all about more awareness and more leads. So Yellowfin for AWS, it's ultimately a marketing tool aimed to target a specific market where we have a lot of natural strengths in, but have never really focused on until now. So we do want you to think of Yellowfin for AWS as essentially a promotional offer for this specific market. Amazon Web Services is the #1 cloud computing vendor that is out there. They have a huge following, a huge customer base, and they are really becoming the de facto standard for many organizations, both small, big, and all the way to the giant enterprises out there. So at Yellowfin, we've also had significant demand for this, people asking if we can run on AWS, which the answer has been yes. And then asking, if there's an instance that they can already spin out. So really not having this instance up there is essentially, in that official capacity is essentially limiting our potential market. So now Yellowfin, we are all about value. We want to make sure that this offer got the attention that it deserved. So we made sure that we had the most attractive offer that is also available there on the marketplace too. So there are quite a number of other BI vendors who do promote themselves on AWS. Most just have the standard 14 or 30-day trials. Some go a little further, offering maybe a 60-day trial. And what we've done with this is put together what's actually the same offer that we have for Yellowfin with students, which is a 1-year subscription for 3 users. And we'll discuss in more detail shortly exactly what that means. And Amazon, like Yellowfin, is also a very good company to partner with. They have quite a number of joint marketing opportunities for us to take advantage of, promoting to their base, as well as Amazon vouchers, which can be used to redeem for different services. And for everyone that does join today's call, we will send you an email afterwards, thanking you for attending. And as part of that, we're going to include an offer for you to take up one of these Amazon vouchers so that you can get tested and get started for free. And then look, finally, Cloud BI is a very common use case for Yellowfin. We have quite a number of customers in this space. Some of them are on this call today. And, really what we wanted to do is make sure that we really built on the strength that we have here. So we did announce recently that Yellowfin was ranked as the top BI vendor for Cloud BI by Bark. So that came out last month. And this is now the 3rd time in a row that we've had this rating, but you can see there it's not even a close second that is there, and that's really because of our natural strengths around being 100% browser-based, having that centralized architecture, the security model, the pricing model, all those things have really played into our hands there. So, and again, we did mention this is the 3rd year in a row that we have been ranked as #1 vendor, and Bark themselves say Cloud BI is clearly a space that Yellowfin dominates. So this is a strength for us, and it is something that we want to take a little bit more advantage of. So that's sort of a little bit about the offer. What's this offer really mean, I guess, for our partners? How can this be used by yourselves to help you with your day-to-day efforts. And the first is that it's very easy to get started. So you can spin up Yellowfin for AWS instances in minutes with just a few clicks, and we're going to show you how to do that shortly. And this is great if you're a partner. It's very good for demos. It can save you time. You can build faster proof of concepts, and you can also remove common objections such as needing to wait for hardware to be provisioned, or software budget, or IT time and resources as well. So it's a great way to get around those common objections. Probably the biggest benefit though is that if you can own that own cloud environment for your customers, it gives you a much deeper relationship with them. So rather than just doing some consulting work, getting some requirements and building some dashboards, hoping that you'll get invited back, now you get the chance to really manage that whole environment. So from the database to the ETL, and if you could do that and really own that part of the customer's business, essentially becoming their IT department for BI, what might that mean to how you do business? And we already have quite a number of partners who have been taking up this model, and they seem to be finding quite a lot of success with that. So, and look, finally, even if this isn't something that you might necessarily use yourselves, it is still quite a good offer to be able to dangle in front of a prospect. So it is free to test, no pressure, so why not? And look, just to be clear, because we did have, when we did the initial announcement, we did have a number of customers and partners coming to us asking, exactly what this meant. But just to be clear, we are not competing with our partners with this offer. So after we did our initial announcement, we had a few partners really concerned that perhaps we were, this offer was that we would host our own cloud environments ourselves and essentially own the customer. But that's not the case at all. Quite a lot of other BI vendors have done that, and it's effectively cut out some of the partners in deals and made them less relevant. So we just want to be very clear that that is not what we're doing at all. This is all about making it easier for our partners to own their own cloud BI environments. So you host it, not us. And this gives that great way to better own that customer. We also want to emphasize here that this is a free trial, and it's really aimed at getting new people to test our product with no risk. And finally, I do want to emphasize as well that if you are already using Yellowfin inside of AWS yourselves and are up and running, then this is not a replacement for what you are doing. So definitely keep doing what you are doing there. Yellowfin for AWS is still the exact same Yellowfin you are using today. All we're really doing is making it easier for new people to get started. And ultimately, we don't care if you're using Yellowfin for AWS or just Yellowfin, so long as you're using us. So what we're about to take you through is exactly how Yellowfin for AWS works with a demonstration. But before we do that, I did want to quickly lay out some of the groundwork and explain some of the definitions that we'll be mentioning a little bit later in this presentation. So now AWS is one of the leading providers of cloud services. They've got customers all around the world building solutions on their platform. And there are 4 key services, they offer lots of services that we really want you to be aware of, which we'll be using in our discussion today. And the first is Amazon EC2, or Elastic Compute Cloud, which allows you to run virtual machines in AWS Cloud. So when you do spin up an instance of Yellowfin for AWS, you are using an EC2 instance. So that's really the first definition there. The second is a relational database service, or Amazon RDS, which is their way of allowing you to create Oracle or SQL Server or MySQL or Postgres database instances up and running so that you don't have to install it on the machine locally yourself. And RDS is not to be confused with Amazon Redshift, which provides petabyte scale data warehousing clusters as a service. So sometimes there's a little bit of confusion there because RDS sounds like an acronym for Redshift, but it is not. They're different environments. RDS is row-based. Redshift is a columnar database that is owned by Amazon. And finally, there's Amazon S3, which stands for Simple Storage Service. So this provides high durability file store in the cloud. And we're going to mention all of these a little bit later in our presentation. But the key thing to remember here is that all of these services that Amazon provides are a pay-as-you-go consumption model. There's no contract, and that means you can get started with a complete solution stack in minutes with very little outlay. So I'm not going to go into a lot of the detail of these features just now, but later in the presentation we'll get Nigel to be able to answer any of the questions that you might have around that. So now that we've laid the groundwork for, I guess, what AWS is, what exactly is Yellowfin for AWS? How is it different from the normal Yellowfin? And there's only really a few minor differences that make it different, and it's essentially just Yellowfin that has been pre-configured for fast deployment inside of AWS, and it's all about speed, ease of deployment, and only taking a few minutes and a few clicks to get started. So now one of the benefits that you do get with deploying Yellowfin with AWS is that it makes it very easy for you to expose Yellowfin in environment to the internet. So not only can I now spin up an instance very quickly, but I can also share that instance with other people very quickly on other devices and start testing it with multiple users. We did mention at the start of this presentation that this instance includes a 1-year subscription license for 3 users as part of the offering. And this license is already installed when you spin up the instance, so you don't need to go and add it in later. And this license is for wiki and forum support only. So we do want to be very clear here that this does not enable you to get email support. It's wiki and forum support only. So, and then in addition to that, if the prospect does want to buy additional users, they can easily do that. However, if they just wanted 1 more user in addition to the 3-user trial, then they would need to buy a minimum 5-user package, which would replace that 3-user trial. So it's not in addition to the 3-user trial. But that does enable them to have the full support in that case as well. Once that 1-year trial subscription period ends, if they did want to continue, they would also need to buy that minimum 5-user license package as the minimum purchase. So, you know, apart from that, basically nothing else has changed here that we're offering, except it's a extremely generous trial period. Now, the other thing that we've done that's just really in addition to what you would get with your normal Yellowfin is we have pre-installed a MySQL data repository when you spin up your instance. And this is used for storing all of your Yellowfin logs. And you can make that the default data repository as well if you like. And the other differences as well are that Yellowfin for AWS comes pre-installed with our geopacks. So with normal Yellowfin you would need to install geopacks in addition to installing Yellowfin. And we've done that because different customers have different needs, and we wanted to keep our install light. But with AWS, we can pre-install that for you and just save you that little bit extra time. And finally, Yellowfin for AWS does have a slightly different login page that you'll notice the first time you use it. And this was really done on purpose for design because anyone that's spinning up a Yellowfin for AWS instance for the first time, we don't necessarily have their contact details. And without their contact details, we can't send them the login details and also tutorial instructions that we generally do when someone downloads our product. So without that, if they were a first timer, they wouldn't know how to get into the product. So it's something that we had to do. And once you have logged in, it does disappear. So apart from those quite minor differences, really everything else is the same. So next up, when should you use Yellowfin for AWS, and when shouldn't you use it? So there are lots of different use cases, and a general rule of thumb is that if you are happy with moving your data inside of an AWS environment, then Yellowfin for AWS can certainly make your life a bit easier. However, if your IT policies are geared towards keeping everything stored behind a local firewall, then just stick with a local instance of Yellowfin. That's going to be much better suited for you. So obviously there's a lot of different cases in between, but essentially if you're okay with keeping your data in a third-party data center, then you're probably going to be okay with keeping it inside of AWS as well. So, and the considerations around security there are pretty much the same. So enough talking there. We're going to start showing you exactly what Yellowfin for AWS is, and we're going to spin up an instance here. So, and once we do that, we'll just register the product and just show you how you can start using Yellowfin. So what you can see here is Amazon Web Services. I'm just logged in as myself. And you can see here we sort of have, I guess, a library of different Amazon Web Services options that we can do. And the four that we mentioned earlier today were EC2. There was S3, which is the scalable storage. There was Amazon RDS, the relational data service, and also Redshift as well, which is the more analytical database. There's lots of other options here, depending on what you do, but we're really going to focus today on the EC2 instance because that is where you will find Yellowfin. So what happens when you click on EC2 is you can see this is your instance environment where you can see exactly what's running. So I've got a very clean folder here. And the first thing that you're probably going to want to do, when you start this up, is you've got to make sure that you're set to the right region. So Amazon works with different regions. So this essentially means that they have a data center stored in these cities. By default, it will be set to North Virginia, which is in the US. So if you are in Europe, it might make a lot more sense if you have that set to somewhere in, potentially Ireland or Frankfurt. And the benefit of doing that is that if your data is stored closer, you're going to have less network latency. So it will improve your performance by going somewhere closer. So I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, so I've got mine set to Sydney. Okay, so now launching Yellowfin for AWS is very, very easy, and I'll show you how easy. So all we're going to do is we're going to click Launch Instance, and this is going to take us through 7 steps. Not all of them I actually have to finish. And the first is actually choosing my AMI. So we can see here that we have a number of different options. So if I just want to spin up a platform instance, I can do that very quickly. I have my own AMIs. If I had saved snapshots of any instances that I'd created myself, I can save them there. If I did want to turn that snapshot and make it publicly available, it would be available as a community AMI. And then there's the Amazon Web Services Marketplace, which is basically a certified environment of stacks that can be set up. So in order for Yellowfin to get our product onto this, we had to go through some quite rigorous testing around security of the entire platform to make sure that everything was kosher there. So all you need to do basically is just go to that Amazon Web Services Marketplace, type in Yellowfin, and you can see here we've got the option that's come up. So now getting started is very, very quick, and I'll show you just the steps involved. So we're just going to press Select, and the next step here is that it's going to ask us to choose our instance type, which essentially means what hardware do you want to use. Now in this case we have a number of different options that we can use, and what our recommended hardware spec is, it's really a minimum of 2 GB. However, what we do recommend for anyone that is actually going to put Yellowfin in production is that you try this T2 medium, which is the third from the bottom. So that's really our minimum recommended specification for the hardware. You can certainly feel free to go a lot bigger. You probably wouldn't need a 30 gig of memory for Yellowfin. I don't think we have any customers that need it that big. However, there's a lot of different options that you do have here, and just want to emphasize our minimum is the third from the bottom. However, Yellowfin will work if you do want to try it with one of the smaller instances. So even the smallest one here, I can get Yellowfin up and running. But we do want to emphasize, if you're going to be doing anything complex, and certainly for production, this is definitely not ideal. However, that's the one I'm going to use just for now because it's the free version. And so the next option is our different configurations that's available. So we can make some changes there. I could add storage or put some tags on the instance, but I'm just going to go review and launch. And you can see it's very simple. So that's literally 4 clicks. I'm in the review phase to be able to do that. And you can see the default security groups that we have here is HTTPS, HTTP, and SSH. And what that essentially means is with this, when you spin up Yellowfin for AWS, unless you set your own security credentials, it will be exposed to the internet the first time you access it. So it means that you can share this with anyone around the world straight away. So I'm going to launch this instance, and it's just going to give me one final step, which is around key pairs. Now, what a key pair is essentially your ability to access the back end of the Yellowfin stack, so to be able to access the operating system. So we highly recommend that you do configure or create your own key pair. However, for this demonstration, I'm just going to proceed without one, just because it's just that little bit quicker. But certainly in production, you will need this. If you don't configure that key pair, then you won't be able to do things such as upgrade. So it's very important. And then I'm just going to launch the instance. And what's happening now is that Amazon is going and creating this environment for me using the image that we had submitted that they certified. So you can see here your instance is now launching. There's some details that you can go find out more, and I'm just going to click here on View Instances. And we can see our instance is now up and running, and status check is that it is initializing. So from here, this is really the console where we can configure our different security groups. I'm just going to give this a quick name, which is Yellowfin Webinar Demo, just so we know what it is. And this is our public URL here. So if I go to this URL, once the machine's actually spun up and ready to go, we will see that Yellowfin is up and running. So it might can take sort of anywhere between 20 to 40 seconds generally for the instance to get up and running. So it's just taking a little while. And look, from here, you do have the ability to monitor your instance and do your status checks and a whole heap of different things there. So okay, so Yellowfin is now up and running, and what you can see here is it looks pretty much exactly the same as your normal Yellowfin instance, and the only difference that you see here is there's this little button right at the bottom which says register to receive your login. So you can just imagine if you have recommended this to someone else, they might, they don't know what their login details are, which is what you need at this point. So now the login details are the standard Yellowfin admin login. However, if you don't know that, then you will need to get this. So I'm just going to put this in at the moment. So it does make you put in all of the details. Okay. And we'll just call this webinar test. So I'm going to go submit that, and once I have, you can see that that button has now disappeared. So in terms of functionality differences on Yellowfin, we are now essentially using the exact same Yellowfin environment as we would do otherwise. And what happens is once you have submitted this to it goes through, is you will receive this email which will come through, which essentially says congratulations, you've started up and registered your Yellowfin for AWS instance. Here is your username and password. A few hints on what you get with Yellowfin for AWS, and we've included a few little help guides. So this link here will take you to our wiki page. We've got some video how-tos, our community forum, as well as some information on how to connect to Amazon Redshift as well. And look, just with this wiki page, we have created a whole heap of content on connecting with Yellowfin on AWS, so all of the steps that we just took you through there are covered in this wiki, and that also goes with the Redshift component as well. It's all in there. So let's just log into our instance. So this is a fresh instance, and we are using, oh, here we go. Alrighty, and so now we have Yellowfin up and running. So just a few little things that we want you to know about this instance is we have included, because again it's for first-time users, the little help guides. So when you do go onto a dashboard for the first time, you are going to get a little bit of the tour of what it means and how to use that. So you might want to turn those off the first time that you used it. And I'll just quickly show you the differences that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. So the first is the license. So the license has been pre-installed. So we're basically telling people that this is a 1-year trial, which is what it is. However, we have added in a few extra days because we will be updating these instances once a quarter. So that way we can make sure we're always delivering on what we say. And the geopacks, as you can see here, have been pre-installed as well. So everything else is pretty much the same. If you do want to connect to Redshift or Amazon RDS, it's just as simple as going to data sources, and under database you can either click Amazon RDS or Amazon Redshift. And the rest is pretty much the same as you would connecting to any other database. So that's it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So hopefully you can follow those instructions. Again, there's information on the wiki, and anything that we can do to make your life a little bit easier for there, just feel free to contact us. Our details will be available at the end of this webinar. So what else do you need to know? So I have sort of covered these, but it's worth going over just one more time. The first is that we really highly recommend that you set up that key pair if you're doing anything other than just a quick demo to show someone how easy it is, like I've done just then. So again, without that key pair, you won't be able to get into the back end of Yellowfin and do things such as upgrades, which of course we all want you to do. The second is setting a default CSV source. So if you are going to upload a CSV into Yellowfin, that will need a source to get loaded into. We do recommend Amazon RDS database for the CSV upload rather than using Amazon Redshift, and that's purely because of the upload speed. It's a lot faster to upload to RDS through our CSV upload than it is specifically to Redshift. There are other super efficient ways to load data into Redshift, but this isn't one of them. Regarding upgrades and updating licenses, it's just exactly the same as you would using a standard Yellowfin environment. So do want to stress again that we are not hosting this, so you will need to maintain those upgrades yourself. You're not going to spin up a new instance every time we have a new version, unless really if it's just for demo testing. And again, we do want to emphasize that, this is an offer to help people get started. We want you to build your own cloud environments using Yellowfin. We do want you to, build up your own capabilities around here. Now, a common question that we usually get at this point is regarding reference architectures. And our common response is that it depends. It's extremely flexible. And we're lucky to have Nigel on the call today. So it's not long till questions where we can unleash Nigel. But essentially, we do highly recommend that if you are trying to build a serious AWS environment for BI and analytics, that you do consult with someone from the AWS team, because they know all the tricks, so it's definitely worth your while. But regarding reference architectures, there's really two that we want to cover, which is ETL and ELT. So the first is extract, transform, then load, and the second is extract, load, then transform. So, what do those look like? So I think in most people's mind, this is what the typical environment would look like, and it is something that you can configure yourself, where you have maybe your databases that live outside of Amazon, and you would use ETL or replication or change data capture to get that into either RDS or preferably Redshift for that pure performance. So now this architecture is certainly very common if you're doing something in-house, and this was a reporting environment. However, we do want to point out that if you do choose to use this method, it will work, but you might experience some performance pains, particularly when it comes to doing the data loading. And what Amazon do is that they've created a whole heap of other mechanisms that you can take advantage to really get around any type of performance issues, particularly around loading. And really what that ideal architecture would look like is that you can put the data directly into that S3, which is the object store, as your dumping ground. So dump everything in there. You can use just a standard upload to do that. It's a lot faster, or you can use a direct pipe to get the data in there in the first place. And certainly, if you do use that direct connect or pipe it directly into Amazon, that will be a lot faster, but it will also be a bit expensive as well. And then there are these ELT tools where you can transform the data which is in S3 and put it straight into Redshift or RDS. There's quite a number of different tools out there that can do it. A good one that we've dealt with is called Bright, which is really designed specifically for AWS. But there are a number of options, and if you want to use any other ELT or even an ETL tool at this point, you could. And then of course Yellowfin would just sit at the top accessing the main data as Yellowfin normally does. So this architecture, it's certainly not prescriptive, and there can be lots and lots of variations on this. And some of our partners have even built their own custom processes to make sure that they're using AWS environment to its optimal potential. But this is certainly one that you might want to consider. And finally, we're almost at the end of this presentation. We do want to just do a final warning that Yellowfin for AWS can cost money. It is a one-year trial. However, if you are using AWS, the hardware that you're using does cost money. So you can get free trials and sometimes vouchers to put towards that. But we do recommend that you always remember what hardware it is you're running, and just to turn it off if you're not using it. So tools like Redshift are extremely affordable, but if it's going to cost you, say, $20 a day, and forget that you're even using it, you just spun it up as a quick test for 5 days, and that's not good. So we want you to build your own fantastic cloud environments and benefit with that pay-as-you-go model, but we don't want you to pay for what you don't need either. And yeah, we look forward to you testing AWS for yourselves. And if you do have any questions at all, please feel free to contact myself or Nigel, and we'd be happy to assist you. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Nigel, for staying up late for doing this, and we wish you all a fantastic day.
Thank you so much, John, and thanks, guys. Thanks for joining the call.
Take care, everyone.